Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Larison, a GDIT employee participating in the Outteach STEM program with GDIT. I participated in the K through second grade STEM project where we went on a nature walk. To prepare for the nature walk, I used two live subjects, a preschooler who was 3 years old, and a second grader at 7 years old. So in preparation for our nature walk, we talked about what to expect, our hypothesis, if you will, for what we would anticipate seeing on our nature walk. We thought about different things. We go on walks pretty regularly, so they're familiar with the outdoors and the different things that we would see in our habitat of Colorado Springs, Colorado. To prepare for the walk, I made a scavenger hunt. So to accompany both the preschooler and the second grader with reading and visuals, I took some photos, and I also put the words of where they are for reading practice. Always an opportunity. So we took these on our walk, and some of the things, as we discussed what we would expect to see or might see on our walk, we thought about things that we've seen in the past, what are possible things to see, and we actually got to check off everything on our list. Trees, beetles, sunflowers, cactus. We did see a bunny yesterday, the sunset, sidewalk, bench. We even saw a baby snake, and it was real. Cars, Pikes Peak and the mountains, as well as birds. So we carried those on our walk, and we were able to identify and check those off. After our walk, we came back home and we were able to look at our visuals again and identify what items were living and what were not. Of course, the animals are living, and we kind of talked about plants because they grow, so technically they're live. If you don't water your plants, they will die, so that means that in some capacity they are alive. And we talked about, we got into a little bit of water to grow with plants and what animals need as well. So we talked about the different elements of science and nature and what it takes to grow. We also talked about things that are similar, things that make them different, and how to categorize them. Next, we prepared and thought about making our bird nest. We discussed, and I made a list as they told me what they thought it would take to build a bird's nest. And we actually experienced earlier in the spring a bird trying to build a nest right in our doorway. So every day we got to see this in real life of what the birds were bringing and making their nest with. So we made a list of what those items were, and we talked about what kinds of materials they were, how they would be put together. So we talked about grass and sticks and mud, the bird digging its beak in to get some mud and put the sticks and stuff together, and what kind of area would the bird build the nest in a tree, like right by our front door was one of them, and kind of a safe environment to hold the bird's nest. And we also collected some samples. So we collected some grass, and we collected some sticks, and we identified other elements. Now, we didn't collect enough to build a nest, so I had a backup plan. So they were very excited to make a nest. So I thought, what are some household items that we have that we could help make the nest? So I got a brown paper bag, and it was flat, and I allowed them to kind of come up with what they thought the nest would look like. So they bent it down. This is my daughter's, and she bent it down and made it like this. And she got some grass and put it in there to resemble a nest. And so we've got some of that. We've got some flowers and some dried leaves in there as well. And she also found some we have white rocks in one of the pathways, so she put those in there to resemble eggs. So here is our bird nest. After this experience, I asked my subjects if they enjoyed the activity, and their feedback was that they very much enjoyed it. They liked to have the visual and something to kind of look for as they were walking. They also like to go with scooters and things like that, but this was a nice change up to some of the different things that we do, and they really enjoyed identifying it, talking about it, the time that we spent talking about it and really discussing and making a list, as well as the fun activity of making their own bird nest. So this was a wonderful activity. I highly recommend. It was wonderful that the subjects actually got to think about it. You know, I could see that they took time to think about it. Yes, we live in Colorado and we see Pikes Peak when we go outside. So these are things that are usual for them. We see cactus a lot. We see bunnies, and on the path that we take, there are people walking dogs, and sometimes there's a little snake off to the side, the sunset, depending on the time that we go, and different cars. We walk different paths, so you know, we see different things, but seeing them think about it was really wonderful. And they developed their own explanation of what they thought for building the birdhouse and a design solution. They could have made taken the brown paper bag that's flat, and they could have made it, you know, pretty flat, but they knew that a bird had to go inside. She was probably going to lay eggs, so it needed to kind of protect them. So it should be up a little bit, you know, the edges should be up where they can go in, and things like that. So some of the evidence that they've seen in the past, having seen bird nests, and kind of developing a plan and carrying it out, and evaluating and communicating what might work, what might not work, and different elements for building a birdhouse, and would that work for other animals. And we talked about other animals' habitats and even our own habitat. Would we build a house out of grass and mud and things like that? We can. But would that sustain the weather and the type of weather that we experience here in Colorado? Would that be realistic? So it was wonderful to see them thinking about it and actually putting their plan in place and executing. This was a great experience, and I would definitely do it again.